18 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Industry, Science and Technology. Pursuant to the order of reference of Saturday, April 11th, the committee is meeting for the purpose of receiving evidence concerning matters related to the government's response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Today's meeting is taking place by video conference, and the proceedings will be made available via the House of Commons website. I would like to remind the members and the witnesses, before speaking, please wait until I recognize them by name. When you are ready, please, one moment, I think I have a notice from the clerk to pause. One moment, we have a problem in the room. Okay, we're good, sorry. Again, I would like to remind members and witnesses before speaking, please wait until I recognize you by name. When you are ready to speak, please unmute your microphone and then return to mute when you are finished speaking. When speaking, please speak slowly and clearly so that translators can do their work. As is my normal practice, I will hold up a yellow card for when you have 30 seconds left in your intervention, and I will hold up a red card for when the time for your questions has expired. I would like to now welcome our witnesses. From the Council of Canadian Innovators, we have Mr. Jim Balsillie, Chair. From General Motors of Canada Limited, Mr. David Patterson, Vice President, Corporate and Environmental Affairs. From Magna International, Mr. Donald Walker, Chief Executive Officer. From Supply Chain Canada, Christian Allen Buhagar, President and Chief Executive Officer, Simon Nazar, Director, Industry Affairs and Public Policy, and Mike Owens, former Vice President, Logistics at Nestle Canada. And from Western Canadian Shippers Coalition, David Montpetit, President and Chief Executive Officer. Each witness will present for 5 minutes, followed by a round of questions. And with that, we will begin with Mr. Balsillie. You have 5 minutes. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair and committee members, and thank you for the opportunity to present today. I'm the chair of the Council of Canadian Innovators, a national business association composed of over 120 chief executives from Canada's fastest growing technology companies. In March and April, our council advocated for supporting high growth technology firms who were negatively affected by the crisis. We first asked the federal government to create the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy for our members, and then to extend it from 10% to 75% of payroll costs. We also successfully advocated for the strategic use of programs such as IRAP, SHRED, SIF, and RDAs because the 30% decline test did not fit for certain types of high-tech companies. These programs are essential to preserve the employer-employee relationship. It is critical that our innovators are not just surviving, but working overtime during this downturn because their companies will drive Canada's future prosperity and the changed economy that will emerge from this pandemic. We are grateful for the support measures today and the efforts of your committee and the dedicated civil servants across the government. But we need help focusing the government's path forward on these additional priorities. Number one, create an innovation core that mobilizes thousands of our brightest co-op students who had their Silicon Valley job offers rescinded. CCI has created a tech talent radar portal to help connect thousands of recent graduates with Canadian innovators. The government can use this opportunity to reverse the costs of our enormous brain drain. Number two, implement the overdue IP collective to optimize the value of taxpayer investments into R&D and help generate and protect new intangible assets created with the recent stimulus funding. Number three, create a national data strategy for our healthcare sector and other strategic sectors, including agriculture, smart cities, energy, and mining. Number four, fast-track the adoption of national standards and regulations for digital identification, data sharing, and cybersecurity to match the shifts to online service delivery and remote work. Number five, update the Investment Canada Act to prevent leakage of strategic IP at Canadian universities and research institutions and data for strategic sectors, including healthcare, smart cities, and agriculture. Number six, address both supply chain and value chain resilience and maximize economic growth by reinventing procurement approaches that strengthen Canada's innovation ecosystem. Value chains are where Canadian innovative companies compete. And number 7, use domestic fintech firms to help distribute government stimulus loans, just like the US, UK, and Australia have done. And resume consultations on open banking so the Canadian fintech firms can play a meaningful role in modernizing our closed banking structure. Canada's response to this economic crisis must be different than the Great Recession. 12 years ago, our recovery was driven by high-priced Alberta oil, buttressed by voracious Asian demand. Today, oil prices have collapsed because of a supply-demand imbalance, with part of the demand reduction structurally permanent. The foundation of economic renewal needs to be built through innovative Canadian companies, commercializing their ideas to scale, and expanding their freedom to operate into global value chains for the knowledge-based and data-driven economies. Canada needs to diversify its products, not just its markets. Using a traditional shovel-ready physical infrastructure lens, whether roads, bridges, or hockey rinks, to stimulate demand and drive productivity has no traction in a 21st century global economy where IP and data are the most valuable economic and national security assets. What Canada needs instead is a digital policy infrastructure that facilitates productivity, prosperity, and security via global value chains. Canada's policymakers need to jettison the outdated and corrosive neoliberal orthodoxies that left us vulnerable. Policies rooted in 19th and 20th century economic thinking applied to the 21st century knowledge and data-driven economy have resulted in a 25-year slide in our national productivity, record household, corporate, and government debt, and according to the IMF, a decade of reduced GDP per capita, while the US's GDP per capita soared by 35%. Crises always clarify priorities. The COVID-19 crisis generates an ironic opportunity for Canada because it induced structurally changes normally spread over years into a few months. By harnessing their proven ambition and ingenuity, Canadian innovators can help the Canadian government build an innovative, sustainable, inclusive, and resilient national economy, but only if our governments put wind in their backs and strategically use smart policy measures. Thank you.
Perfect timing. And with that, we will now move to Mr. Patterson at General Motors. You have 5 minutes.
Well, thank you very much. And on behalf of General Motors, I want to say thank you to the committee for the leadership that all of you have displayed during this health crisis. I think times of emergency are when we're truly demonstrating Canadian bravery, resilience, and our unique spirit of partnership. We did that in the world wars, and we're doing it again. And we'll get through this together. And I believe we ultimately, like my friend Jim just said, have opportunities to make Canada a stronger and more competitive economy if we learn from this time and take action to prepare for the changing competitive world that lies ahead. So I'd like to make just 3 key points and then look forward to discussion later. First, everything we do today has to start with safety. I've provided the committee with a link to General Motors Canada playbook for safe resumption of our automotive operations, which started 2 weeks ago for auto plants here in Canada. Our approach is guided by Health Canada, the WHO, our medical staff, and learnings from our successful safe resumption of General Motors operations in Asia. Some of you will have attended our webinars. We've shared our protocols and procedures widely as we prepared our employees, unions, and others, our communities, to have a safe return to work. So I'm pleased to report that General Motors has not had a single case of COVID-19 spreading in the workplace in any of our global operations. Second, COVID-19 is an emergency like no other, with economic as well as health implications. This is especially true for the auto sector. In March, the fully integrated North American sector saw its factories grind to a halt. In April, in Canada, vehicle sales were down 75%. This creates extraordinary challenges in a complex industry like automotive as we endeavor to sustain our businesses and then kickstart the manufacturing engine of our economy at a time when our revenues have collapsed. We believe the auto sector will be one of the key leaders of economic recovery in North America, and it will rapidly innovate towards electric, autonomous, and other technologies as we go forward. But we know that this is going to require some extraordinary effort and partnership. We're deeply appreciative of the bold initiatives of our governments across Canada to support people and our businesses, but we know that we're only partway there. Canada's auto sector has united behind a few core recommendations. The first is our call to ensure liquidity, particularly by reinstating the Canada Secured Credit Facility to support auto finance companies, suppliers, and dealers so that they can keep alive, support employees, and our customers who finance or lease their vehicles across Canada. Canada's auto sector is also united in calling for a Canadian vehicle scrappage incentive for consumers who turn in a 12-year or older higher emitting vehicle to be scrapped. The permanent retirement of these older vehicles would generate a significant reduction in greenhouse gases and other emissions from the on-road fleet, while also improving road safety. We believe the right scrappage incentive program can help spark and sustain the recovery of auto sales in Canada, which is essential if we're going to keep auto factories, suppliers, and their employees working. And I'll end where I started with leadership. I'm proud to be part of a sector that stepped up without hesitation to quickly retool, manufacture, donate, and deliver medical devices and protective equipment that are needed by our frontline heroes and for all Canadians as we get back to work. There are numerous examples, including thousands of auto dealers and communities across Canada that made the difference when a car was essential to get food, medical advice, or just to help a neighbor. And at GM Canada, together with the Government of Canada, we've announced that we have converted parts of the Oshawa auto plant to make millions of face masks for Canadians. And we'll do that with no profit. I never imagined that we would become a licensed medical manufacturer, but we are now. And we're proud to be able to help. There is more that we all can and must do as the auto sector reboots and then continues to transform in exciting new ways. We will succeed, and there will be opportunities for Canada to do so too. And I look forward to discussing that with you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Patterson. Our next witness is Mr. Walker from Magna International. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. We're going to get the society back, so Dave, you can go get a haircut. I sent out a letter, and I'm not going to read it all. I just want to hit the high points. My name is Don Walker. I've been the Chief Executive Officer of Magna. First started in 1994. So I also, Magna, myself, and most of our management team went through the 2008-2009 downturn. So we've taken a lot of the lessons learned from that. We employ just about 20,000 people in Canada out of our 160,000 people worldwide that operate in 27 countries. When this first started, we almost immediately implemented our own travel ban, stopping people from coming in from China, which helped a lot. We've also asked people to quarantine. We've been working on PPE. We have donated over 500,000 KN95 masks to Ontario, and we helped them source another 1 million. That's coming out of China, and I think we can get more. We've also been involved with producing face shields, masks, ventilators, gowns, etc. From a health and safety standpoint, which is our primary concern here, we have very similar. I won't repeat everything Dave just said because it's probably very similar. The automotive industry has worked really well together across North America and has taken lessons learned from operations everybody, including ourselves, have in China. They're back up and running. Europe has been back up and running. We've been sharing best practices there. So we have a very extensive playbook. It would probably be very similar to General Motors because it was developed with everybody doing the same thing, which I think is critical to make sure we can get the industry restarted safely and stay going. We've had less than 150 employees test positive out of our 160,000. None of those we believe came from spreading in the workplace, but we do contact tracing in every case. As an example of a large corporation, this had a $1.1 billion of sales impact to us in the first quarter. It'll be much bigger in the second quarter. In the first quarter, it cost us over $250 million. So it's a big strain. We've been taking advantage of various government programs around the world. Some of them are a little bit difficult to follow, getting the details right, but we've been tracking that globally. We've been trying to support our employees. For the auto industry, I'll make this quick because Dave already said a couple of these. We need to get the industry back up and running and stay running. If we shut it down again, we probably will not reemerge for months, and you're going to have unbelievable damage towards the supply base, and liquidity will dry up. So it has to stay running. That means we need to get the dealerships open, and hopefully people will go back and start buying vehicles, which ultimately supports the industry. Dave mentioned the scrappage program, which should be very good to incentivize people to buy new vehicles and get the worst polluters off of the roads. We also been a suggestion for a tax holiday, potentially eliminate the HST or GST in new car purchases for, say, a 6-month period. And I think we need to be aligning with ourselves on with the US and everything we do, whether it's regulations or what we're going back to work, because it's a very interconnected industry. As far as sort of what's going to be the new normal, we've had thousands of people working from home. We also look at how this industry will be hit by delivery of products and services now that everybody's ordering online. Personally, we maybe get into this in the Q&A. I think the government has responded well in a very difficult situation, trying to figure out what to do. I'm sure as we look back, we'll have a lot of lessons learned. I do think we need to get off government programs as soon as is practical, because we need to incentivize people to go back to work unless they're compromised. And I'm very concerned about what's going to happen with the government deficits, debt, interest rates, trade policy, et cetera, et cetera. So probably get into some of that in the Q&A, but it's going to be very interesting getting us all back to work. And Canada, I think, needs to really be focused on how to maintain ourselves as a healthy fiscal country going forward. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Our next round of speakers is Supply Chain Canada. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to the members of this committee for inviting me to appear before you. Founded in 1919, Supply Chain Canada is a nonpartisan, not-for-profit corporation that acts as the voice of the supply chain community in Canada. I would like to start my remarks by expressing my sincere thanks to the hundreds of thousands of supply chain professionals who have been working tirelessly to keep Canada moving across every sector and every industry from coast to coast to coast. I would respectfully ask that the committee also recognize the tremendous work of our Canadian supply chain professionals. In the interest of time, I'll focus my remarks on the lessons that are being learned as we move through the crisis. Today's supply chains are global and interlinked and vulnerable to a range of risks, with less margin of error for absorbing delays and disruptions. They are enormously efficient, which is meant to lower costs, but they are often more efficient than they are effective. Many are too linear and transactional and challenged with a long latency. Most supply chains are often slow to sense and adapt to market and consumer demand changes. Supply is primarily determined by historical sales order data and not by actual consumption and market data. During this crisis, latency has caused a dichotomy of shortages in some products and excess in others. Future agile and resilient supply chains must reduce latency times and strengthen their ability to predict consumer demands due to market changes. This will require more visibility throughout the entire value chain. Visibility will require more data and analytics, all of which will require digitization strategy of the end-to-end value chain. We believe that there is a role for the federal government in supporting this transition to digitization. Supply chain agility and resilience will also mean increasing geographic diversification. We have seen through the crisis that excessive dependency on single countries or regions is a risk. We have also seen that long supply chains over vast geographic distances are a risk. There is little doubt that more regional and local supply chains will be at least a short-term result of the crisis, particularly for critical items. Whether onshoring becomes a broader, longer strategy is yet to be determined. Resiliency of supply chains also requires the safety of their supply chain workforce. Safety and resiliency are inseparable. It is in the interest of companies to protect their workers, and we believe that companies can be left to determine how to meet guidelines. But guidelines need to come from government more quickly than they have to date. Guidelines must be clear and consistent across the country and we believe that the federal government has an important role to play in establishing consistent guidelines and leading national emergency management. During the crisis, province by province guidelines have created a patchwork and sometimes conflicting approach for companies that have to operate supply chains nationally and internationally. Interprovincial trade restrictions must be also examined to ensure that in an emergency, we can quickly and easily shift production and distribution from one region to another. We encourage the federal government to provide the national leadership needed to revisit all interprovincial trade regulations that in the face of an emergency may hinder agility. There is much discussion now about the need to have larger inventories, particularly with respect to critical items. There is no doubt that inventory and stockpiles will need to be examined based on the challenges we have seen during the crisis. This should include a future state framework for critical asset supply chain, including sourcing, procuring, and pandemic stockpile management, with a system for total visibility for all stakeholders, federal and provincial. We strongly encourage this to be overseen by a chief supply chain officer, leading the function strategically and building the digitization solutions and end-to-end trade-offs to ensure success. However, we also believe that more important than inventory and stockpile management is to have what we call strategic capacity, the ability to understand and anticipate quickly what we can make, what we need and what we can make in Canada, and to be able to turn on that corporate capacity quickly and effectively. This is an opportunity that we believe will strengthen and protect Canada and likely calls for a public-private partnership. We encourage the federal government to lead such a national strategy together with industry. In the longer term, it is clear that supply chains will need to change. How we train supply chain professionals will also need to change. Investing in reskilling our supply chain workforce will increase our ability to manage resilient supply chains. Canada should aim to become a world leader, and we would encourage the federal government to invest in the training. Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and we are happy to take your questions today.
Thank you very much. And our next witness is David Montpetit. You have 5 minutes.
There we go. I'm unmuted. Thank you. Sorry, everybody. There we go. Good morning, Madam Chair and honorable members of Parliament. On behalf of the Western Canadian Shippers Coalition, I would like to thank you for the invitation to participate in the session. My name is David Montpetit, and I'm the President and CEO. WCSC is a cross-commodity organization focused on the safe, efficient, and competitive movement of goods while optimizing the transportation sector, which will ultimately benefit the Canadian economy. Our organization represents companies based in Western Canada that collectively ship billions of dollars worth of product annually to domestic and international customers and provide tens of thousands of direct and indirect jobs in Canada, including many small communities where they are key employers. Let me start by thanking the government for its efforts to minimize the impact of COVID-19 pandemic on Canadians. This includes both the bureaucratic and ministerial level personnel at Natural Resources Canada and Transport Canada for being available and responsive to WCSC members through regular conference call meetings, and other MPs with the sitting government in the official opposition who have made themselves available to discuss our concerns. I also extend my appreciation to all shippers and supply chain partners for continuing to do your utmost to safely operate and deliver goods and services during this stressful, unpredictable period. COVID-19 is not one of the only challenges impacting the Canada's supply chain. There has been pressure on our national trade corridors for several years, which is why WCSC participated in the Canada Transportation Act review initiated by Transport Canada in 2014. Provided recommendations in Responsibility 49 and continues to represent members on follow-up initiatives related to Transport Modernization Act. COVID-19 struck at a time when shippers were still recovering from recent disruptions to the supply chain, including service issues resulting from the CN rail strike in November 2019 and the usual winter weather conditions, a slow order issued by Transport Canada in response to the February 6 train derailment in Saskatchewan, and illegal blockades on rail lines across Canada that also began on February 6 and continued through March. The impacts of the measures taken by industries and governments in response to COVID-19 include scheduling issues, shipping delays, container shortages, increased transportation costs for trucking and vessels, labor capacity issues such as workforces that is diminished or stretched to meet decreasing and increasing demand, a drop in imports and exports to Asia and Europe, and reduced demand for products, for example, in the energy sector. The rail blockades and COVID-19 pandemic have not only demonstrated the importance of Canada's supply chain to the average Canadian for basic necessities, but they've also exposed its vulnerability. As Canada emerges from the pressures of COVID-19, our key concern is the recovery plan, the ability of the supply chain to have adequate resources in place to ramp back up when business starts to return to normal operations. WCSC members will continue to collaborate with Transport Canada and NRCan regarding this. Some recommendations. First of all, we would recommend a comprehensive supply chain review. A comprehensive review is necessary to determine precisely what Canada's major trade corridors will require in terms of maximizing the performance of roads, rails, and ports. This includes determining current and future capacity, first and last mile efficiencies, and bottlenecks in congested areas such as Vancouver and the Lower Mainland and Northern Alberta. Second is more robust data collection and analysis. The rail transportation system must become more transparent. In Bill C-49, the government put in place transitional performance and service metrics reporting. Those metrics lack relevant context, in particular in relation to railway capacity. That has made the transitional provisions largely ineffective in promoting transparency and accountability. Data that is aggregated and averaged over an entire country does not give forest products a mill in Northern Alberta, nor mine in BC any actionable information. Shippers have taken a much more assertive role in developing their own internal regional specific railway performance metrics and require a benchmark from government to measure against. We are extremely concerned about the damage to customer confidence in the reliability of Canada as a supplier of goods and resources, resulting in the ongoing challenges in the supply chain, and will continue to work with government and other shipper organizations to seek solutions related to COVID-19, including what I mentioned, the Strategic Recovery Plan, a comprehensive supply chain review, and more robust data and metrics. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much. We'll now move into our first round of questions. Before we begin, I'm just going to remind the witnesses, if you are using a microphone, like an iPhone microphone, if you can bring it closer to your mouth when you're speaking so that our translators can do their work. Thank you so much. And with that, we'll move with our first round of questions. We have MP Carey. You have 6 minutes. MP Carey, you're still on mute.
All right. Thank you, Madam Chair. And I want to thank the witnesses for being here today, because I think we have some of the best minds in the world actually in this virtual room. And I would like to call on you again. And for those of you who know me, I'd like to say special thanks to David Patterson and Don Walker, how we worked together with your CAPC report. I thought that was excellent work back in the day to come up with the Conservative Auto Action Plan, which was a sector strategy. And what I'd like to say is, for the time when that was there, that was a plan, that was a strategy that we could all see and move forward on. And I think overall it was successful, but today is different. And one of the things I noticed with COVID, Canadians, I think, are starting to realize the importance of having manufacturing, our supply chain, but also essential goods, whether that's for healthcare, but also for our security, that we're able, if we can't make it all in Canada, that we have partners that we can trust around the world to make sure that we can get the products that we need during times of crisis. So I wanted to talk to you about, what does the future plan look like? We saw what the CAPC report said years ago, but now is a different world and it's changing so quickly. The World Bank's ease of doing business in 2015 when we left, I think Canada ranked 14th in the world. We're now down to 23rd, which, by the way, is closer to Russia, which is 28, than our two largest trading partners, the UK which is, I believe, 8, and the United States, which is 6. So moving forward post-COVID, what do we have to do for the plan? Because now the government didn't have the plan before COVID, but we need something very aggressively post-COVID. So what does that new plan for supply chains look like? And incorporating perhaps, Mr. Basili and Mr. Monpetit, the questions about supply chains in there. What does this new plan look like?
I'm not sure what, you want me to start?
Don, if you want to start, and then I know Dave, we've done work in the past. Could you let us know what your thought with a plan moving forward needs to look like? And we have to act soon.
Yeah, so CAPC is the Canadian Automotive Partnership Council. I've been the chair since it started, I think, about 14 years ago. I think there has been a lot of good work done. The one thing that I personally think when we get through the pandemic, that for the most part, things go back to relative normal. There may be things where people get used to working from home. We might have different protocol for safety over the next 6, 12, maybe 18 months. Probably a bigger impact on what's happening with the auto industry in Canada is the new USMCA. I was quite pleased that the federal government, Ontario and Quebec, and the industry all work together quite well. And I think Chrystia Freeland did a really good job consulting with the industry. A lot of good people were working together to say, what do we need to do to make sure we're competitive and we have access to the US market and Mexico? And I look at that as being a pretty big trading block that can compete against places like China and should be a level playing field with Europe. So I don't think much will change with the supply base in the automotive industry. For those people who aren't familiar with it, the auto industry is, I believe, the most technologically advanced industry in the world. Without even a close second, it uses the electronics and the autonomous driving vehicles. So having a manufacturing base and an engineering base in North America, I think, will help raise the standard of living for everybody. So I don't think that much changes. I do think we need to look at what's the new normal from a government perspective going forward. Look at the debt, everything else has happened. Is that going to put a burden in taxes on companies? Because a company like Magna, we're a proud Canadian company, but we have to go where we can make a profit. And hopefully we can get our fiscal, everything in order. It'll be similar in other areas around the world, but it's going to be very interesting to see what happens from a competitive standpoint.
Yeah, I think you're right in that regards, Don. And maybe we could have somebody comment on the importance. You mentioned the new CUSMA. I like to say that instead of USMCA. But the amount of data that you have to collect, and I know that the Americans are moving forward with their 5G network, and there's been complaints when I listen to industry about uncertainty. Where's Canada going to go? I mentioned about the importance of our security system and whether or not we use Huawei or not because of the integration with the American market. And I was wondering, perhaps maybe Christian could mention, he talked about it, or Mr. Balsley. How important is it the Canadian 5G network is in line with the North American and the American and our allies in the 5G to make sure that we can collect this data that's going to be so important and utilize it amongst our friends?
Would you like me to jump in on this one?
Please, yes. I always like a Waterloo grad.
Well, the important thing is that we have a security alliance with the Five Eyes, and I think when it comes to the Huawei situation, the most important thing is to listen to our experts and listen to what they're doing. This is not a place for people with deep subject matter expertise in this. So I think I would listen to our experts, and I think they've uniformly cautioned us that you give capability to turn against us because they have that. I think in terms of the USMCA or CUSMA, you have to remember that there's approximately 2 million words in that agreement, but the 2 words that are not in that agreement are free trade. That this agreement has nothing to do with free trade.
Unfortunately, Mr. Balsillie, that's all the time we have for that round of questions. The next 6-minute round goes to MP Assassi.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and allow me to also thank all the panelists who are very insightful, and very grateful that they all agreed to appear before our committee. Now, if I could start off with Mr. Patterson. Mr. Patterson, you did touch on the Oshawa plant. I know you have ambitious plans. You've been working very, very hard to retool the facility GM has in Oshawa to produce masks. And I know among the things that GM has done is they've ordered equipment that arrived, I believe, approximately a month ago. You have been in close contact and are collaborating, in fact, with Unifor. And you've also had experts come in from GM in the States who have expertise in producing masks. So could you kindly give us an update on when we're going to see the production of masks at the Oshawa plant?
Well, thank you for the question, and I expect we're going to see full production of masks this week. And so things are moving along really well. I'm so proud of the capability of my company to, first of all, in the United States, to design the machinery to make masks in the first place, to go into our supply chain, because one of the key things for us in getting domestic production here in Canada is the source material that we need for masks. And, you know, we're really good at making cars, but this is a whole new area. We need to be safe. We need to be working with officials to make sure that the things that we're producing are going to be appropriate. It's very interesting that in Canada, there's a lot of discussion around N95 masks. They're a mask that gives you a complete face covering. They're really important in certain medical uses. We use them in our paint plants. They probably make up about 5% of the need, and very important for those healthcare workers. But we are going to need, I've seen estimates of 3 billion face coverings that we're going to need in Canada. So we're going to be making about 10 million of those, but we're going to need a lot more from different sourcing areas. There's other great companies in the automotive sector like Woodbridge and others that are also transforming their operations to be able to make masks quickly. So we have some clean room space in the Oshawa plant. I thought, well, let's use it. And so we worked hard. We got ourselves lined up quickly. We had excellent support from all across the government, Health Canada, Procurement Canada, and the like. We're going to do this with no profit. We're doing it entirely at cost and offering our facilities, our expertise to be able to do it and to do it quickly. And we'll be hiring, we have hired approximately 60 people we're bringing back to work in the plant to do this production. They've been trained. We're ready to go.
Thank you. And did I hear you say the capacity will be 10 million masks a year? Is that correct?
Yeah, that's approximately where we're at right now. And we're always going to continue looking at what else we can do.
Thank you very much for that update. Now, if I could move to Mr. Balsillie, please. Mr. Balsillie, in your comments, you were talking about changes to the Investment Canada Act. But as you know, approximately a month ago, the government announced that there will be enhanced scrutiny under the Investment Canada Act. And that, of course, is for investments that relate to public health, but also for the supply of critical goods and services. So critical goods and services, of course, has not been defined. That allows regulators, it gives you an elastic definition and a very broad one. Was that a step in the right direction, in your opinion?
A very small step, but I think it was very limited because, one, it was temporary. And when you look at Canada's peer countries around the world, they've created very systemic and ongoing evaluations of their investment acts. I mean, I would turn it back to this question back to your committee. Have you defined the sectors that are strategic to Canada for investment purposes? Have you defined the technologies and companies and researchers that underlie those? And you'll find that any form of review, virtually all of them never hit the threshold of evaluation when the activity happens, whether it's a partnership or a license or a small acquisition. So you have to understand that the way you approach the ICA is anachronistic very much for a tangible manufacturing economy, not for an intangible economy based on value chains and sovereign and economic freedom to operate.
But surely you would agree, because you were asking our committee whether we've actually come up with a list of critical supplies. You would surely agree with me that if we do not have a specific list, that leaves the government much wider scope to stop an acquisition. Is that not correct?
Well, in the famous phrase of Joni Mitchell, you don't know what you've got till it's gone. Canada spent 30 years funding fundamental
But that's
IP.
not what I'm asking, Mr. Balsillie. I'm saying if we had a defined list, a positive list of what we consider to be the critical sector, that would actually mean that people could take advantage of that. When you don't have a definition, it gives you more latitude, does it not?
When you don't have a definition, it happens, you find out after it's gone, or you never find out what you lost. And because the overwhelming majority of the transactions that most peer countries would consider strategic never hit the threshold of evaluation of our traditional framing of the Investment Canada Act.
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for that round. Just a little gentle reminder, when you see the yellow card, that means 30 seconds remaining. When you see the red card, the time is up. Notre prochain tour, c'est député Lemire.
Our next turn is for Mr. Lemire. You have 6 minutes. Thank you, Madam Chair. So there are concepts there that are very important and very interesting. The concept of sovereignty has been raised, autonomy, self-sufficiency of our industry and of our supply chains. We've noted a reduction in imports and exports, upheaval in our goods and services. The vast majority of manufacturing companies saw their activities impacted, and they had to organize themselves differently and be innovative. In the context of supply chains, you have to rely on predictability that is essential for our competitive position in the Canadian economy. You have to have traceability of elements throughout the supply chain, and that's where our infrastructure is important. So we have to know what's going on. We need safety to make sure that our supply chain is reliable and agile. So my question for Supply Chain Canada, Mr. Buhagiar, what are the decisions and actions that the federal government must take within its territory so that Quebec and Canadian companies can improve the performance of the supply chain?
So, Madam Chair, through you to the member. So in my remarks, I mentioned a few things, and you used yourself some of the words that we would, predictability, traceability, reliability, agility. I would use visibility, I would use resiliency. The challenge for us now is, and this was raised by a few other speakers, in order to be agile and resilient, in order for our supply chains to be nimble, for them to be responsive. And so in supply chain language, we talk about latency. So the time that it takes between a market or a consumer change in demand to a company being able to respond. And right now, the latency time for most supply chains is relatively lengthy. And so the ability to be nimble, the ability to be more resilient will require that we reduce that latency so that corporations, so that supply chains can react more nimbly, so that they can change to address consumer behavior. And we saw that play out. We're seeing that play out in the crisis. It's that dichotomy between shortages in some products and excess in others. So what we've suggested is that digitization, which some of the large companies that are represented as witnesses today have done a very good job. The majority, however, of supply chains in Canada are not digitized. They do not have that visibility across the supply chains. That is where we think government can help to move Canada. And that a conversation, and David Montpetit talked about a national supply chain strategy. That digitization element of supply chains need to be a part of that conversation. So like David and his organization, we support the necessity of a federally.
C'est un bon point. Je me permets parce que j'aimerais pouvoir.
I would like to ask my other questions, especially to Mr. Balsillie, since he is a defender of our national autonomy. I would have liked to ask him a question about BlackBerry, how he sees the challenges about this company, but also for our economy, our safety. What legislative measures should we implement, and what would be the benefit of investing in our local companies rather than in foreign companies in Canada?
Thank you for the question. And I would draw your attention to figure number 3 of the appendix that I supplied each and one of you. The challenge for Canada is that we misunderstood in the era of liberalization of tangible trade that you also needed a hands-on approach for intangibles. So we have a 20-25 year backlog of strategies that we need to take, not the least of which is investment review, regulation of data, protection of sovereignty, protection of culture, protection of the economy. So it's a large list of things that we need to do to what you call digital policy infrastructure that I think is the urgent priority for Canada. And if you look at figure number 2 in my appendix, Canada's proportion of intangibles has not grown in our economy in 20 years while it's soared around the world. So I tie those two things together, and it imperils our sovereignty and our prosperity.
Merci.
Thank you. And this will be more of a comment than a question. I would like to tell you that I am here in Ottawa, and I used my Chevrolet Volt to 2020. And I had to recharge it twice, and I was very happy to be able to do that. And I think it would be better to invest even more for green economies.
Le seul temps qu'on a. Next round of questions goes to MP Massey. You have 6 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Sebastian, for reminding me I showed Who Killed the Electric Car back in 2004. David remembers that. Yeah, at any rate, I do want to ask a question, though, with Mr. Balsillie, to start with you, with items 3 and 4 on your presentation. They kind of go together, a national data strategy and then adoption of the national standards, just to quickly summarize, so to remind everybody about that. But I would see those things as important priorities. So we even heard testimony from other witnesses here today about a standardization process. And then perhaps your thoughts about how the Privacy Commissioner might be a proper enhancement at the moment to help bring confidence in sharing more data in the rules around it for companies, not only domestic but international ones looking to invest here in Canada, and a set of common rules and expectations for the consumer and also the private citizen to protect their personal information as well. Do you have any comments on that?
Yes, thank you for the question. I think you've hit on a very important point, because a big part of a national data strategy is indeed regulations and standards. And I would put all of that within the great big bucket of a digital policy infrastructure. What's particularly important about data is cross-cutting. It affects our values, our security, our economy, our mental health, our security, our competitiveness of our economy, democracy. So I can only say that we need urgent action there. I think we have an excellent privacy commissioner, and he's employed enforcement powers and much more of that. Though I would commend the Competition Bureau commissioner last week. They moved into the privacy violation realm and said that that's a violation of consumer rights. So really what you need here is you need to think of this as a whole toolkit to address the secure sovereign prosperity of a nation. It's not a single point approach. And the toolkit's very different than the traditional neoliberal tangible economy set of toolkits we've used.
Okay, yeah, no, I think that fortunate, this could be an efficiency for our country for investment if we do it right, we do it quick. I do want to move to Mr. Patterson with regards to one of the suggestions that you had with regards to a scrappage fee. And we've talked in the past about this, and I guess my concern, and maybe you can highlight how we can deal with this. I've long advocated for a national auto strategy. I believe that it's important for our national security as much as it is for innovation in the sector. And we have just underperformed as a country. You can't look at the plant expansions happening across the globe and look at Canada. I'm across from Detroit, Michigan here. They're up to $8 billion in investment in Detroit alone. Our government's only secured $6 billion in the last 5 years. So that needs to change, in my opinion. I've seen, Mr. Walker, your work at CAPC. It's far from the days of the robust CAPC, in my opinion, quite frankly, where it was actually more of an activist base with had working groups that followed through on a regular basis. But there's terrific work. I follow it all the time, and I thank you for that work. But we know in the past we had the Eco Auto Feebate, and that was the one where Toyota took the safety bags out of the back seat to get the gas mileage to go up and got $1,000. That's about 10 years ago, and they got a lot of that money. And most recently, we have a government program where it left off the only domestic produced vehicle hybrid, the Chrysler and the full electric vehicle here in Windsor, which we had to fix. So a scrappage program, how could we tailor make that to more to domestic needs? Then I'll be quite frank, because I don't want to do an incentive to people buy foreign vehicles that don't have a connection to North American manufacturing right now.
Well, the problem with that approach is that we would only be promoting a handful of vehicles when the market buys hundreds of vehicles from different people all around the world. But I'd say a couple of things. I think we can design a scrappage program that will give us a dividend in greenhouse gas reduction, and we should take that advantage if we can do it. I think we can have one that inspires people to get older vehicles, and we've sort of done the analysis, and we're happy to share it, of this, that you replace any vehicle right now with something that is 12 years old with something new, you're going to get a 35% improvement in greenhouse gases, at least. And then you have options in terms of electric vehicles that are coming. And I think the other thing I want to say, just apropos of some of the things Jim has said, is that this industry, the automotive industry, is not standing still and just doing the same things as we've done in the 1900s. I mean, this is an industry that's going through rapid technological change, and there's huge opportunities for us here from CAPC's point of view. We've hired 1,000 engineers that are working on autonomous technology and are working on electric vehicles. And so there's going to be massive change coming forward in the auto industry. And I think Canada has fantastic opportunities to be part of that, to be part of the intangibles global economy that Jim's talking about, and to do it and grow up domestic suppliers that can have real competitive advantages. But we need to have a strategy to do that. And so I would welcome the chance to sit down and talk about that further.
No, and yes, and I know that you guys had your Car Heaven program before as well too. I only have a few seconds, Madam Chair. Give me the yellow card. It's a soccer thing, I think. But at any rate, I do want to say that it's incredibly exciting what's taking place just across the river here, and I wish more of it was in Canada. Thank you.
Thank you, MP Massey. And we'll begin now our second round of questions. Our first question is for Madame Rempel-Garner. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madame Chair. I just wanted to start by following up with the comment that Mr. Walker made, I believe, and I would direct the question to Mr. Patterson as well. Mr. Walker, I believe you said, we need to get the dealerships opened. I'm just curious what your demand forecasts are. Let's say we would use May 2019 as like a year-over-year benchmark. When do you anticipate those levels of demand coming back within the Canadian market? And what assumptions would you be using to make that that projection? And if you haven't done that forecasting yet, that's an acceptable answer as well.
Well, I wish I had a really clear view of this. Everybody around the world is looking at this. So we've looked at what's happened in China. There's some differences there, but the demand is coming back. It has been slower to come back in Europe. I think there's some different dynamics over there. In talking to our customers, I'll let them speak of what they want to do, and maybe David can add some color. It looks like there's a fair amount of demand right now for the next 3 or 4 months because they haven't been producing cars. But we need to get the dealership open.
Mr. Patterson, just very briefly.
Sure. Well, I'd add to that. I mean, there's some pent-up demand in terms of people returning leases and other things that will help in the very short term. But it's all the regular crystal ball toolkit has kind of been thrown out the window right now. We need to see what behavior is going to look like.
I wish I had more time, and I'll just ask you both very briefly, yes or no. Are either of your companies pursuing the federal government for direct support, either through a credit facility or a direct subsidy?
Yes, Magna is not through liquidity, but for their employees.
And so is General Motors in the same area, yes. I think you'll find that across the auto sector.
Thank you. All right, the rest of my questions are to Mr. Balsillie. In a previous life, I helped do some work with intellectual property commercialization, some of couple of Canada's top universities. And, it's interesting to me. I saw some statistics recently that showed that I think American firms own 50% of the world's IP. And our share of IP ownership has actually shrunk compared to the Americans in recent years. So, why is that? Perhaps, just for productivity, you've got like a minute and a half. What are the top recommendations you would make, bullet point list, to change our competitiveness? People sometimes, they say like, oh, let's just diversify the economy. Like it's this magic wand that you can just wave. But the reality is that receptor capacity has to be there. How do we retain IP in Canada? What needs to change? Bullet point list.
Number one, upstream grants that the professors have to have a responsible IP policy, that they can't just give it away because they feel like it. Their funder, they have to do it in a way that's in the benefit of Canada. Number two, you have to train people on how the IP game works. It's very technical. It has to be done in a strategic fashion. Number three, I think we need to address this through collective, organized fashions, kind of like Western Canada was done with farm co-ops. We need to do that. We're so imbalanced in size. I think it's very important I'll wrap up here, that 3M has 7,000 discrete patents with the word mask in it. Just because we can manufacture a mask doesn't mean we have the right to make a mask. And therefore, we have to pay attention to our freedom to operate, because that's where the geopolitical and the economic and the security battles are. So those are my three recommendations.
Just briefly, with the time that I have left, in terms of receptor capacity, what bothers me is that sometimes there's this dialogue in Western Canada that it's like, okay, well, let's just get rid of the energy sector and then let's diversify the economy.
No.
So can you explain to people who might not understand what we need to do to build receptor capacity for things like clean tech and to retain IP in Canada?
Completely. By far, the number one patent filer in Canada, 2.5 times number two, was Halliburton. And number 4 was Baker Hughes. The oil patch is an IP and data business. And what's going to happen to that, and what is happening to that, is the value chains are going to go to those who own the IP and data, just like it happened to newspapers and just like it happened to taxi drivers. The same thing goes to the data to run a farm. So no, we need sectoral IP and data co-ops, if you will, which was how Canada was built. We had mutual companies, we had credit unions, we had farm co-ops. We simply have to go to our own old playbook and have cooperative approaches only in the competitive realms of intangibles, just like we did to build this country 100 years ago.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next round of questions goes to MP Erskine Smith. You have 5 minutes.
Jim, I want to pick up on where Michelle left off to some extent, but first, you've recommended national digital standards, including in relation to identification. In the last Parliament, we looked very closely at the Privacy Committee at Estonia and the work in the EU. And it did occur to me in the course of this crisis, as we're forced to live even more of our lives online, we would have been even better, even so much more well placed to live our lives online had we had a digital government in place to begin with.
Yes, correct. We have to, it's the plumbing structures. The government gives you physical identity and a driver's license and a passport, but they've abdicated that role essentially in the digital realm. But as we move to more online services, the government has to provide some form of identity, or you've let corporate actors do it and it comes with a social media account or some kind of Airbnb rating. The other thing we have to do is have data sharing standards. I can assure you the folks in Treasury Board want to see these things, but it needs pressure from your committee to say to finance, this is a priority. And I need you to understand, these are very small dollars. We were talking 10, 20, $30 million antes to make us safe and strong in this digital evolution. But you don't do it if you don't understand it's important. And that goes to that whole realm of what is called digital policy infrastructure that we haven't paid attention to in 20 years.
And not only improve customer service for Canadians and citizens from their governments, but also significant return in a small investment, as you say. But Estonia certainly reaps significant economic rewards overall. On innovation, it was reported in the Globe, the National Research Council had made an agreement with CanSino. We were going to foot the bill to some extent, but have no IP and no guarantee of supply. And then Natalie Raffoul and Jim Hinton call it innovation philanthropy. They not only point to that example, but they point to similar university networks supporting 5G research, AI research, research in batteries that Tesla has managed to profit from out of Dalhousie. Along the way, we are funding research and we are not reaping the benefits. Those two authors recommend an IP collective, and I think Jim Hinton is part of building out an IP collective. This is one of your main recommendations here as well. How does that fit? How does that help, I guess? Walk me through how an IP collective would support Canadian innovation.
Well, what happens is if you look at the U.S. Filings for last year's patent filings, they just came out yesterday for the top 300. These companies are building enormous arsenals. You know, Facebook's filings were up 78% last year. Companies, IBM filed another 10,000 patents. We're so mismatched by 20 years of not paying attention. The only way we can rebalance that is through collective actions. And again, I draw to the story of Western Canada. It was so imbalanced to the force of the US 100 years ago, communities came together and created collective strategies. And we need the same for IP. We can talk all we want about supplying clean tech, but we own virtually no clean tech technologies. We funded them through our researchers, we funded them through our granting programs, but they've all leaked out. CanSino is another case in point. We're counting on the benevolence of a China and a Chinese company and the Chinese military for our sovereign ability to look after our health in a vaccine. That's no way, I believe, for a country to manage its security and sovereignty and health and prosperity in the 21st century.
And my last question, because presumably that IP collective, the idea is to allow Canadian companies to maintain IP here in Canada and to better profit from IP here in Canada. I wonder, when it comes to public investment, what that looks like for a return for the state as well. And so Mariana Mazzucato wrote in The Entrepreneurial State, where an applied tech breakthrough is directly financed by the government should in return be able to extract a royalty from its application. And I wonder what you think, not only about ensuring Canadian companies are benefiting, but where we are significantly investing state dollars, public investment in our university networks and beyond, and companies, Canadian or otherwise, are able to profit. Should the state not have a direct return as well?
I love the idea, and it's a lot better than making China richer with our money. I love your idea.
Thanks very much.
And our next speaker is MP Patzer. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My first questions will go to Mr. Montpetit. Thank you for being here today. We can all appreciate what a challenging time this must be for your industry. So what are some of the, Mr. Montpetit, sorry, with the closures from the rail blockades earlier this year, was your industry still feeling the effects of this as COVID-19 was progressing?
Absolutely, it was. The one bumped up pretty well right into the other, and yes, definitely the impact was there. One thing about the supply chain and anyone that is dealing with the supply chain, we're used to dealing with issues. So this just turned into being another issue on top of another issue. But yes, we're definitely impacted by it, and it did roll over. In fact, as I stated earlier on, we had not received a break at all it's been 6 months since November, since the CN strike happened. So it's been rolling forward ever since. But to honestly say, it was there was no chance to recover at all, because you just one bled right into the other.
Yeah, and are you concerned that as we come out of the COVID pandemic, the blockades will once again be an issue, or where are you at with that sense?
There's always a concern with that, because I don't think everything in some of the issues that came up were fully vetted and put to bed. And there's always a concern with that once that behavior has happened in the past, can possibly predict future behavior too.
Yeah. So how well is the federal government doing at sharing clear and specific details with you as things are evolving?
As far as what?
I guess it's more so just kind of how the crisis is and how it's affecting your industry and getting supports and different things.
Well, the communication we have had with Transport Canada specifically, and also NRCan, we've had very clear communication with them, our way to them, so one way. And I know internally they obviously have been dealing with it the best they can, but do we have any solutions in hand? No.
Okay. And sorry, to jump back to the issue of infrastructure and kind of back to the railways again, how concerned are you about the state of rail infrastructure in Canada? And the reason why I asked this was in your speech, you referenced some of the rail issues in Saskatchewan. Those derailments were happening, not necessarily in my riding, but very close to it.
Well, I think overall, to be fair to the railways, we've got good rail infrastructure in the country. You have areas that have far more, I would say, coverage and than others, but overall we've got a good rail system. It's a matter of dealing with some of the bottlenecks that we have within the rail system and determining where they are. And those are bottlenecks more out of infrastructure bottlenecks, not due to perhaps cutbacks from the railway or what they're currently doing. They're just making adjustments to the current business environment. So, but you do have, and as I mentioned before, I do believe that we need a full supply chain review. And I think it became clear after going through what we've gone through here that we do need a supply chain review from all modes, not just railway, roads, ports, etc. Because I don't think we've done that yet. We've done it in spits and spats, but we really have not looked at the collective supply chain.
Right. So kind of expanding on that then, it's been suggested that Canada is currently facing a container shortage. Is that an accurate assessment, and what are the effects of such a shortage on the supply chain?
We are experiencing container shortage. For example, coming up in June alone out of the port of Vancouver, or I should say the West Coast, there are 9 missed sailings already with container ships. So the effect will be until the export trade out of China and out of Asia it matches what we need, and things come back. We're going to continue to face this over the next probably 6 months at least, and it's something that just doesn't correct itself overnight. If you figure how long a ship takes to get to and from any variety of ports in Asia, it's something that takes months and months to do. And fortunately for some of my members, exports are going fairly well, considering all things considered. So we do need to look at, we need to monitor that. But it's an ongoing situation that we'll have to monitor. But it is a concern, and it will be.
Okay. Thank you for that. And just quickly here, my colleagues Tracy Gray and Todd Doherty released a statement urging the government to take action and ensure that truckers had access to things like facilities, food, and rest stops. Are you aware of the federal government taking any steps in addressing these concerns, and is this still an issue?
We did bring that up with Transport Canada and NRCan early on, probably the first 2 days. And in all fairness, it was submitted up, so I'm not sure who dealt with what. But I have to say our shippers alone, the energy companies did deal with it, and they put protocols in place. So I acknowledge that, especially the retail side and the cardlock side for truckers.
Thank you very much. And our next round of questions goes to MP Longfield. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to all the witnesses. I'm going to start with Mr. Patterson and then Mr. Walker talking about the recovery phase and reopening the plants. Specifically with Mr. Walker, for starters, I've been talking with the local Magna plant. I talked with them a few weeks ago. The opening of the truck plants in the States was going to be driving us towards opening in Canada, then working with the provincial labor minister and the Department of Labor to inspect our operations. The extensive playbook that you have, I've heard it was 140 pages. How does that translate, or how is that available for the plants in Canada as well as possibly other manufacturers?
I think Dave already said that the General Motors will share theirs. Ours is 64 pages long, and it also covers offices as well as plants. We've actually had government people in to look and approve them, but this is a playbook that's been agreed to amongst the whole auto industry, so I think it's very thorough, and we're happy to share it.
Okay, that's terrific, because Guelph has a lot of auto parts manufacturing, and we're in the supply chain. Looking at testing and seeing, the Premier has been making comments recently about us not hitting testing numbers. And I had a conference call earlier this morning with our mayor and with a representative from the manufacturing industry, talking about I was making a suggestion that maybe we could have groups from the automotive parts manufacturers go to the testing clinics to set up slots of times where we could get people from the clinics, or people into the clinics and back out to their shifts. Is that something you're doing anywhere in the world, or is it something worth considering?
I can jump in on that. I know that the Ontario government's been interested in really significantly ramping up the volume of testing. Yep. Much of the testing protocols in our plants is to make sure that we respond when we have somebody in the workplace that catches a fever or something like that. They can go to the nurse's office. They can get referred to the system. I think the ramp up of testing that's also being discovered is to increase testing for asymptomatic people and to try and get broader data and the like. So drive-through testing is something that is attractive. We've set aside a parking lot in Oshawa that is sitting there available for Health Canada or others in Ontario to set up a drive-through testing capability. We have bottlenecks of times when our shifts change in plants, but we could have a regular opportunity for people to go in voluntarily and do testing. And similarly, we could have all of Durham Region going through that area too. So I think there's ways to do it without disrupting the really good protocols that are in place right now.
That's great, because we have to get beyond temperature testing and just asking questions. And as you said, asymptomatic is really the key. As we look at the second wave, I'll stay with you, David. You're also making ventilators. Hadn't come up in your presentation yet. It looks like we're going to have more ventilators than we need for this wave, but could you maybe comment on the capacity of ventilators for the second wave and opportunities for export?
Well, I'm not a ventilator expert, but General Motors was able to help a company called Ventec in Seattle to essentially tear apart their ventilator down to 700 parts and use our international supply chain to resource those parts. Dawn is making some of them, and so are other Canadian suppliers like Linamar. And those are rolling off the assembly line in Kokomo, Indiana right now. We have another couple of our companies in the auto sector that are making ventilators right here. As well. And so really whether it's face masks or ventilators, it's really got to be Health Canada that are the experts to tell us what the demand numbers are and where we need to ramp up. We can manufacture, but we need that guidance to come in.
Yeah, and of course, Health Canada has to continue to work with the provinces and territories to get the local numbers into the system. Looking at the scrappage program, I had a Zoom call with our local retailers, also the Retail Council, Automotive Retail Council, and the automotive parts manufacturers. Everybody's talking about getting a double win of getting more cars on the road that have lower emissions, as well as helping to stimulate the economy. Scrappage programs are generally provincial, so we would have to coordinate with provinces like BC that already has a scrappage program. Are you working with provinces as well on this idea?
Yes, I had a call with 2 provinces this morning. So yeah, we are looking at what things we can do to coordinate together.
Super. Send them our way. Thanks a lot, Madam Chair.
Notre prochain tour.
Our next question will be Mr. Savard-Tremblay. You have 2.5 minutes, sir. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. So my question is for Mr. Patterson of General Motors. Like my colleague, Mr. Lemire, I'm the owner of a Chevrolet. It's not the Bolt, it's the Volt. I'm very pleased with it. Someday I'll get a Bolt. So my question is this. I think it was you who invoked the free trade agreement. If it wasn't you, there was someone else who talked about it in the context of the auto sector. We see there are provisions now about origin of content. We led the battle for aluminum, so that, and we see that parts are increasingly aluminum. So we're seeing self-sufficiency increasingly in the auto sector. So I'd like to bring this back to energy. Electricity is the wave of the future in Quebec and elsewhere. That seems clear. Would you be in favor of a zero emission law? And an increasing number of electric vehicles being built, like California, that has the same population as Canada, has a similar law. Quebec has had one for 4 years.
If I can answer that to start off with, first of all, thank you for driving an electric car from Chevrolet. We intend to see a huge turnover of our General Motors fleet into electric, from pickup trucks down through the entire fleet of different vehicles that we offer. We are building an enormous battery plant in Ohio right now. And so there are 2 major changes that are going to take place, I think, in the auto sector. One is electrification. The other is the bringing forward of autonomous vehicle technology. So I think that change is coming, but one has to be really careful in bringing forward laws that are sort of knee-jerk pushing things so quickly that we end up not having the ability to make the transformation. So we're very comfortable with Quebec's law, but we have to work together to make sure that these things are managed in the correct time.
Reste-t-il du temps, Madame la Présidente? Do I have any time left, Madam Chair? 10 seconds. Well, I'll thank you then. Thank you.
And our next round of questions goes to MP Massé. You have 2.5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Mr. Walker, I want to acknowledge my brother actually works in one of your facilities here in Windsor. The outreach that was done to prepare the workforce going to back to work was extensive. They were provided PPE, a whole procedure with regards to testing, some of it digital, online, some of it flexible. So if you showed up to work in advance and there was a problem, there was already a triage for those individuals that weren't comfortable doing the online stuff. But maybe perhaps can you highlight a little bit about maybe there's some suppliers underneath you that may not have the same type of supports that need some perhaps either some global standards or some assistance? Because I know of other factories that are doing the lower tier suppliers in the auto sector that just either don't have the resources or don't even have the structures in place to be able to do some of the higher standards that you're doing. I'm not suggesting that they're unsafe. I don't know all the environments, but I know, for example, friends and family members are being treated differently at different plants.
Sure. I think the smart start has been really shared across the board in the auto industry, and it's been cascaded by companies like General Motors and Ford down through the supply base, including our supply base as well. So everybody should basically learn it and can implement what they want. There's different opinions based on different geographic regions, but Canada should all be similar. I do think that other industries can use the same playbook if they want. I think it is absolutely critical that we get people back to work. We can do it safely. Once we're back to work, we cannot shut down again. So that's why we're going to do the contact tracing. But if I was going to make one point on this panel, we need to get industry going again. We need to get the country going again because we're going to be bankrupt if we don't. So, I don't think it's going to be that difficult. It's going to be a bit more expensive, but I think it's all the work's been done. It's out there now.
Thank you. I know, Madam Chair, my time is up. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And our next round, the third round, we start with MP Van Popta. You have 5 minutes.
Good. Thank you, Madam Chair. So my first question will be for Mr. Balsillie, and thank you for being here. You made the point, Mr. Balsillie, that Canada's productivity measures have been lagging for the last 25 years. And I compared to some of our trading partners. But you say, and I hope I'm quoting you correctly, crises clarify priorities. So I like that optimism. But given this historic lag of productivity, is it realistic to think that Canada in a post-COVID relaunch of its economy can actually be competitive in the innovative space?
100%. We just have outdated policy thinking. The whole world 25 years ago approached productivity as a two-legged race. Neoliberalism for the tangible economy, where you got rid of friction and free trade, and then on the intangible economy based on restriction, they built a set of digital policy infrastructures. Canada thought it was a one-legged race, and the rest of the world ran it as a two-legged race. So all I'm suggesting is perhaps we invoke the second leg. And that's what I mean by updated think. We have lots of experts, but they're not employed because the keepers of the policy orthodoxy don't think it matters. So the old, what's the old expression? I've seen the enemy and the enemy is us.
Mm-hmm. Good. Well, thank you. That's a good answer. So now still about productivity lag in Canada is, do you see a correlation between Canada's lagging productivity growth and on the one hand, and on the other hand, our inability to grow homegrown technology companies from startup to scale up? And that comes from your website, the distinction between startup and scale up.
100%, yes. The ideas economy is based on the principle of restriction. It's an abstract construct. So ownership is based on what are called marketplace frameworks. So you can only be successful in the ideas economy to scale in a way that moves the dial if you have a full and complete digital policy infrastructure that's created in what you call a public-private framework. And so the whole world went hands-on 20 years ago when we went hands-off. So we will only scale up and we will only reverse this productivity once we understand how the game is played and get rid of these corrosive neoliberal approaches for purposes of the ideas economy.
Okay, good. Thank you for that. Now, you also made the point, I find it intriguing, the concept of an IP collective, and you draw the parallel to history of Western Canada in particular and the development of it. Has the concept of an IP collective proven successful in any other situation, any other country?
Many countries use IP collectives. And in fact, all of these state industries were at their origins IP collectives through their telcos and their various industrial crown corporations around the world. But Korea has it, Singapore, France, Japan, they have multiple of them. Yes. And also we should employ data trust, which is just another form of collective for data. So this is organized toolkits because you create institutions that create an environment that you can prosper. And these are hands-on technical realms. And we have to take charge of our own future, our own destiny, and build our country. Nobody's going to build it for us. We built this country 100 years ago with courage and deliberateness. And for some reason, we caught this narrative that it was hands-off 25 years ago. And the whole world was double hands-on. I did business around the world. Every country is hands-on in their ideas economy. We were the only one I ever encountered that was hands-off on all these things. And that's why I'm trying to explain to you, we don't have to do anything novel, just do what all the other successful economies are doing.
Good. So would a collective IP require any legislative measures like amendments to the Patent Act or the Trademark Act, et cetera?
No, and it's allowed through SMCA as our data trusts. and it was approved in the budget 2 years ago. We just have to choose to implement it. It hasn't been implemented yet.
Okay, good. So go ahead.
Because I don't think people think it's important.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't think owning our ideas is important. We think it's just go to the world and somehow it'll work out. It's hands off. We don't even tie our funding for our tens of billions of dollars we've funded, and we don't make sure that it stays to the benefit of our economy, security, and prosperity. I've seen no country in the world do it like we do. It's unfathomable to anyone who's skilled in the arts.
Good. I've got one, almost out of time. One quick question. How does our Canadian Intellectual Property Office, the CIPO, compare to regimes in other countries? Its effectiveness, its ability to be responsive to industry?
It's fine. And they're doing a good job in education. But we just have to understand what they do is strategic, and we have to do a lot more of that, as it's the upstream funders that matters, not the implementer of the owned ideas. They just process what comes to them.
Thank you very much. Our next round of questions goes to MP Johari. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to all the witnesses. Quite informative session. Let me start by echoing back about a number of different topics that came up that resonated with me. Number one, we got to get the economy up and running, and then we got to keep it up and running and continue running. I also heard a lot about resiliency and about two-legged race, that we excelled in one and we forget about the second. And it looks like we're hearing that we did that some 25 years ago. We also heard from Mr. Balsillie that he had hoped that our committee would have or the government would have a list of sectors that would prioritize in ramping up the economy and building resiliency on that. Traditionally, you could take a GDP by sector approach and say, okay, these are the sectors that we're going to ramp up and build a resiliency by putting the safety, putting the tracking, testing, and all of those things in it, and ramp it up and make sure that you bring the confidence in the consumer to generate the demand again. But what I'm hearing from you, Mr. Balsillie, and I'll start the question with you first, is around the fact that we need to bring the IP collective and we need to bring the second leg. So can you help me? In the absence, if my understanding was correct, in the absence of we don't have a strategy, can you help us, kind of depict a strategy forward that which sector of economy focused in what area would we launch, and how do we build the resiliency in that?
Well, what we pick is a bit of a normative exercise. And so you tell me what's important, I'll tell you how to do it right. And so if we think being sovereign in our medical industries is important, then we should be doing a whole bunch of things very different. If we think our energy sector matters to us and our agricultural sector matters to us, then we should be doing a whole bunch of things in Investment Act, in data trusts, and patent collectives, and vertical forms of investment. So you decide what's important to be a sovereign nation. What mattered 100 years ago is different now, and certainly in a pandemic, it heightens other forms of priorities. So you have to say what's important, and then you have to design the toolkit to make sure that you protect the importance of those things. There was a time 100 years ago.
Yeah, so I understand. So in your opinion.
My opinion?
Yeah. What sector should we lead with?
Oh my goodness!
That support our nationality in the new norm after the COVID-19.
I think what I call the family, or others call the family business, our traditional resource industries like energy, mining, ag, fisheries, forestry should have an IP and data strategy with them, so that they don't get done to them what Uber did to taxi drivers, and what John Deere and Bayer can do to our farmers. So we have to protect ourselves in what are called value chains, because the car drivers had control of the supply chain of the car, but they lost control of the value of their business and the price of their job. And it all went to those that controlled the IP and data. And that's what I'm talking about in collective forms of value chains that we need to have strategies for. I would apply them most importantly to our traditional businesses and include medical in that.
Okay.
And I would certainly include manufacturing and automotive in that, by all means.
So what you're saying is do a traditional parallel approach, that there are certain sectors or center industries that there still remain core, but then go back and reevaluate based on the new norm of what we think we should add as a priority, and start building the resiliency and launch these reopening initiatives one by one.
Yeah, you should have offensive and defensive forms of protecting the value in those core Canadian traditional businesses, because the world has shown that it's becoming much more what you call mercantilist and rivalrous, and everyone's a lot more by themselves than they realize they are. So you have to create more sovereign approaches. And what you found out is if we don't control the value chain, then we're just competing on cost to the bottom, if even at that.
Okay, thank you. I got 15 seconds, which I yield to the chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next round of questions goes to MP Dreeshen. You have 5 minutes.
Well, thank you very much, Madam Chair, and I want to thank all of the witnesses for coming today. Your presentations have certainly given us a lot to think about. I think the big thing is, what will this government learn from the pandemic? Will it continue to use it as a tool to hypnotize the masses, or will it abandon its global initiatives and focus on Canadians? Now, those of us with secure jobs or fixed retirement incomes, minus the stress of investment depletion, will weather this storm for now. But printing billions of dollars a week to cover the Prime Minister's daily cuckoo clock appearances will hurt us for generations to come. And those people working for businesses teetering on the brink will need to make wage concessions that the public sector would be appalled by. So we need a plan. We can't make the same mistakes again, because health and social distance decisions made for high density communities are necessarily different than those communities which are more sparsely populated. Supplying funds to help small business owners adapt to this new reality would have been a much better received than having them watch their clients all flock to big box stores for their purchases. So the most common theme we've heard throughout this nightmare has been the concern over both the lack of any federal government plan to reopen Canada's economy, as well as a lack of any plan to build and support Canada's future economy. So let's call that a 10-year plan for the economy of the future. This Liberal government is devoting huge resources to so-called green economy businesses. And we've just heard from Mr. Balsillie how we really should be thinking about and concentrating on our core values. So regardless of the damage that it does to these other economic sectors, they fail to recognize...
Chair, could I have a point of order? There's some...
We have a point of order on the floor, yes?
There's a speech going on versus a study, and the speech is including non-parliamentary language towards the Prime Minister. So I just caution on that.
Thank you very much. I'll remind the members that we are to maintain parliamentary language and respect for all members in the House, and I will let Mr. Dreeshen continue.
Well, thank you.
Actually, on that point of order, Madam Chair, I'm just curious what the unparliamentary language was, because it was my colleague kind of chastising my colleague for using his time as he saw fit, and he made an accusation. I kind of don't agree with it.
So the comment that was unparliamentary was the cuckoo.
That was the point, Madam Chair.
Point, and so I ask that members remain professional, and we will continue. I'll restart the clock at 3:15.
That has been used in the media. That has been used in the media. The cuckoo clock appearances in and out of Rideau Hall. So I think he's just quoting. I could be mistaken, but I think it has been.
Members of Parliament aren't using that language.
We are now getting into debate. I have put out the comment. I'm asking MP Dreeshen to continue his questions. He has 3 minutes and 15 seconds. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Madam Chair. And if the Prime Minister's feelings are hurt, then I would take that back. They fail to acknowledge the other Canadian resource opportunities and are slow to react to rail transportation issues. And as the Canadian Council of Innovators have stated, this government turns to U.S. tech giants much too quickly. They're demanding attestation of goodwill towards climate goals for government loans to appease their one world order investors, and have all but abandoned Canada's agriculture and resource sector, as well as many of the emerging sectors being defined by our entrepreneurs. We know that Canada is well positioned to be a legitimate global player in the so-called big data field, especially in industries where the country already has an advantage, such as agriculture, mining, infrastructure, and healthcare and oil and gas. My question to Mr. Basili from the Council of Canadian Innovators: your group has long advocated for the government to develop a national data strategy in support of Canada's brightest minds and our entrepreneurs who will be so vital to our future economic success. What do you think the consequences will be if the present government fails to develop and effectively plan to reopen the economy in the wake of COVID-19 and doesn't develop a plan for the economy of the future?
I think if we don't, thank you for the question. I don't think if we don't come forward with a national data strategy, data is cross-cutting. It affects not only our prosperity, but our norms, our democracy, our security, our mental health. Then I think we'll lose our sovereignty as our country, both in security and prosperity and democracy. I can't think of a more important policy priority. And it is very important that to know that there's been about 250,000 patents, global patents filed just on AI alone in the past 20 years. And Canada is the only country per WIPO report of leading AI filers to have a reduction in its IP filings in AI. So we may not even have the right to apply algorithms on our own data because we don't have what's called the freedom to operate patents to do that. So that would be part of a national data strategy.
Well, thank you very much. I believe it's also been mentioned that Canada needs to diversify its products, not just its markets. And I think we can think back again to the Prime Minister's line during the first government where he noted that Canada needs to be known for resourcefulness, not its resources. But of course, the government did that after it had to focus on the vast majority of its resources into this so-called green sector, while virtually ignoring everyone else, particularly our world-class natural resource environmental expertise that we should be marketing around the world instead of acting like it's something to apologize for. This and many other things are critical factors accelerating the exodus of Canada's best and brightest. I'm just wondering if you could perhaps talk about how we can bring back some of those folks that have been pushed towards Silicon Valley in the U.S.
I just think they can't go there now, so that we should have a strategy to welcome them and make sure that the opportunities are here. And I actually think that every business is a tech business, and just about every business is a clean tech business. So, and the way that you become a clean tech business and a prosperous business and a good job is by controlling the value chains of IP and data. So it creates a very virtuous cycle. If we start taking control of our destiny in this very expert and technical realm.
Thank you. Unfortunately,
thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next round of questions goes to MP Lambropoulos. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to all of our witnesses for being here with us today to answer our questions. Actually, similarly to what MP Dreeshen just asked, I had a question about exactly that. So you Mr. Balsillie, you spoke about reversing brain drain and using the pandemic to keep our most innovative and brightest minds in the country. And I was wondering if, as the chair of the Council of Canadian Innovators, you'd be willing to share with us some strategies. And I know that, obviously the value chain and making sure that they feel valued and making sure that but I'm looking for something more specific. If you can give us some very specific recommendations on how to, if you knew that tomorrow the government would implement your strategy, what would you give us as advice?
Oh, I said my first recommendation was create an innovation core and along the line of our tech talent radar portal, where we actually make sure that these people actually find better jobs in Canada for the summertime that they're here, because the border may not open for 8 or 12 months. So we have an unusual opportunity to reverse the brain drain. I mean, it is reversed temporarily, but we can actually make Canada a preferred destination. Certain key computer science disciplines at University of Waterloo, 90% of the graduates leave Canada for Silicon Valley. They can't leave now. So the top students are here. Let's have them build our country, make them our leaders, deploy them, and make that our orientation. And that's what I mean by the sense of opportunity, is how do we deploy them in a strategic fashion and make sure that we're building industries where they feel that they're building something exciting for the future, for themselves and for the nation.
Thank you very much. And I guess as a follow-up question, you had also mentioned in your introductory statement that we need a 21st century data and knowledge-driven economy, that we're in a 21st century data and knowledge-driven economy, but that we use practices of the 19th and 20th century, and that we need to bring our smart policy measures forward. So are there any recommendations that you have not yet mentioned, as I'm one of the last questioners today, that you would like to bring forward that you haven't already mentioned?
I've mentioned them all in my figure number 3 in the digital policy infrastructure. I think the one recommendation I would say on top of that is we have to be honest about the degree to which our policy community has been captured by foreign interests in the policy making, because they're not interested in us having a sovereign, prosperous approach. They're interested in being cheap labor and easily exploitable markets for foreign goods, because that's what you're supposed to do when you're a foreign company setting up a branch plant. So a sovereign Canada is not their job and not what they're interested in. So we have to be very cautious the degree to which foreign companies have captured the regulatory and policy thinking of our country. I see it every day, which is why I articulate the counter narrative that actually the true Canadian innovators believe in.
Thank you very much. And if I have any remaining time, I'd like to pass it on to my colleague, MP Longfield.
I wasn't expecting that. How much time do I have, Madam Chair?
1:35.
Okay, I'd like to start with the Supply Chain Canada with Mr. Bahagier. The Magna Centre for Supply Chain Excellence is located in Cambridge. The federal government has put a lot of money into the research center that's being created there. We can see how companies like Magna have pivoted in this crisis, and General Motors and others. Where should we be focusing on investment in research coming out of COVID-19 in terms of supply chain?
I appreciate the question. Let me assure you that we actually do a lot of work with the Magna Centre, and thanks to Dawn for the great contributions that they've made. Brian Watson, who leads the centre, is a good friend of ours. So a couple of things. One, let me say, I'll leave it to the great minds in research to think about the great topics. From our perspective, however, the key is around reducing this latency, which requires digitization of the supply chain. And the key there is to determine how we take consumer market-driven behavior, predict where consumer behavior is going to go, and be able to feed that much quicker into the supply chain so that we can shrink that latency. So if that helps.
Okay. It does. I'll have a follow-up. Hopefully I have a little bit of time in the next round. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And our next round goes to Député Vignola. Vous avez 2 minutes.
MP Vignola, you have 2 minutes and a half. Thank you. I shall talk about the supply chain because it's very interesting to hear you talk about innovation, respecting the ideas of others. So that's what I want to talk about. For the supply chain, for your businesses and the customers can deal with the government, there is a website, the site sales, acquisitions and sales on the website of the government.
The question is for any of the witnesses. I think that several of your clients have used Buy and Sell, the site, over time. Mr. Balsillie? In your opinion, is the Buy and Sell site up to date, innovative enough, and effective?
I can't really provide you a thoughtful answer to that. I'm sorry, but I haven't used it, so I can't comment on it.
Monsieur Patterson, probablement que je...
Mr. Patterson, your company has most probably used the site, given the productivity changes, etc.?
I had occasion to use it just recently because we were actually participating in a research program the government put forward to improve the site, and asked users to walk through different scenarios, give feedback on how easy it was or hard to use. We looked at, in particular, PPE. We looked at if you were to try and procure from the government masks or visors or things, how easy it is to go in and learn about those things. And I think we found some really good improvements, and we always constantly need to improve.
OK. Donc,
So the site isn't as effective as our present needs would dictate? Is that what I should understand from what you're saying?
Very good ways to improve, and I give the government credit for going out and looking for ways to improve.
Merci.
Merci.
Thank you very much.
To MP Massé, you have 2.5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Balsillie, you mentioned the Investment Canada Act, and I remember when this committee was actually studying the Nortel sale, and RIM actually purchased a Canadian company, and they still had to go through a U.S. security screen, even in that acquisition. And meanwhile, in Canada here, we don't have the same type of measures with the Investment Canada Act. In fact, we finally got some issues related to non-democratic governments and the national security screen on it, but it's still pretty fast and loose. I just want to get a little bit more clear from you with regards to what you're suggesting might need improvement, because there's everything. The thresholds for review have been increased significantly over the years. So there's a lot of like startup companies and other companies that fall underneath the review process. And I think that that has to be addressed, because especially if we're going to be rolling out some supports and investments from taxpayers, some of these get gobbled up because they're good deals for somebody else coming in to scoop them up from us.
Yeah, first of all, I mean, we have dozens, if not hundreds, of professors in partnerships where their early ideas are scooped up in a partnership or a license that never hit an Investment Canada Act. I think on the Nortel thing, which I think is interesting, illustrative to this committee, I had many calls. We were part of the consortium that bought it, and our share of it was about $800 million US. I had many calls in the wee hours of the morning, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, where the US government, the Department of Commerce and Department of Justice, was making sure that the structure of the licenses and the consortiums did not upset the competitive and fair balance of access to these 5G patents into the economy. So I could literally spend as much time as you want explaining how it's a very hands-on structure, even in a single license acquisition of foreign technology between two rivalrous consortiums. It's a very deliberate and organized, hands-on abstract construct. And that can apply to all aspects of what we do, whether it's buying a startup or making a minority investment or a partnership in research and development. It's and you have to look at what the Austrians, the Germans, the French, the Brits, the Australians, the Americans have done, let alone all the Asian tigers. They're very deliberate on their investments and partnerships here, and it's very hands-on. And it's the second leg of that economy that we just simply, we need to develop it. We should have developed it 20 years ago, but let's start developing it right now.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. And that completes our third round. We have some time remaining, so we will begin a fourth round of questions, and we will start with MP Rempel-Garner. You have the floor for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess I'll pick up where I left off with Mr. Balsillie. Again, I think we have to be talking about what the economy looks like going forward. And there's been a lot of talk about the fact that the stay-at-home restrictions may have accelerated disruptions that were already underway in certain industries, everything from bricks and mortar retail to airlines continuing. I would argue that this underscores the need for us to get our policies nationally with regard to intellectual property commercialization straight. I guess would you agree with that as being a priority for government? Okay.
Yes.
Now going forward, you had made a comment to my colleague, I believe it was Mr. Patzer, about when he was asking about intellectual property, and you used the example of Canada funding the Chinese military or an institution associated with the Chinese military to build a vaccine, and that being problematic. Did you just want to expand upon that as well? Because I also have reservations with that approach.
Well, I think we have to be honest about the fact that who owns the rights to these technologies, whether it's 5G technology for telecommunications, whoever it may be, whether it's a vaccine. And if we're concerned about the nature of those countries and companies in geopolitical rivalries, we are now dependent on their benevolence for things that are strategic to us. If we think a vaccine is strategic, then we're dependent on their benevolence. If we think our telecommunications infrastructure is strategic, then we have dependencies. And so this is the issue of these consequences. The IP game has moved from economic to non-economic realms that include health and security. And so this is, we have to build our country deliberately.
So one of the things that has always sort of struck me over the last 20 years is the patchwork of intellectual property ownership policies between Canadian universities, given the amount of research funding that the Canadian taxpayer pours into those institutions. I don't have an argument against research,
no.
But I also think that patchwork of policies really does prevent us from, as a nation, capitalizing on our IP or retaining it at home. Would that be an accurate characterization as well?
Yes. I chaired a panel on this for the province, and I've briefed the ISID deputy ministers and their leadership, who are very receptive to the reality that they know that our system has to change. But what I've also learned is it not only takes civil service capacity, and we have some very good leaders in the civil service, starting at the leadership of ISID, but it also takes political instruction.
I agree. So in terms of that, like many Canadian universities, they have intellectual property management offices, and they take an ownership stake in IP that is commercialized from research that would originate from their institution. Do you think maybe we're looking at it the wrong way, that rather than paying Canadian universities to take ownership stakes that are patchwork and balkanized across the country, that are derived from taxpayer-funded research, that perhaps we should restructure that so that it's more of a national benefit, and that intellectual property commercialization capacity is done in a more strategic way, again, rather than a patchwork of different ILOs across the country? And I know this is spicy, but it really hasn't worked over the last 20 years.
It hasn't worked. And let me give one nugget to your committee everyone likes to talk about the Fraunhofers in Germany. They have 72 or 73 research hubs all across Germany. They changed the world. Do you know how many tech transfer offices they have for their 72 research entities? One. High standards, high expertise, high focus. They knew what you you distribute, and they knew what you centralized. And it's to scale, and it's to core. And why don't we just do what Germany does?
So on that note, one of the arguments that is always used in saying why the government shouldn't retain some stake in the IP while universities do is that researchers will never come to Canada under this system. Given the example of Germany that you just cited, would you classify that as true in all cases?
That's not true whatsoever. It's not true whatsoever.
I didn't think so, but I wanted it on the record. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our last round of questions goes to MP Assassi. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll be sharing my time. I just have a quick question for Mr. Walker and Mr. Patterson. Of course, what we've been hearing over the course of the past several months is that it's important for supply chains to be more resilient. And there's been a lot of talk about how those supply chains are bound to become more regional, and that geography is going to play a much more significant role. So to Mr. Walker, I wanted to see if he has seen any evidence of that so far, that supply chains are are changing, and that Magna may have become a beneficiary of that?
Yeah, we haven't seen too much yet. I think the new CUSMA is going to change the sourcing. We've already seen some things were sourced in China to move, and I think that's one of the reasons why we needed the new CUSMA to include Mexico, because we can source some competitively priced products that are high manual labor down there. I don't think much changes in the supply chain of the automotive industry. It's already very, very sophisticated. They've gone through some learning experiences with earthquakes in the past. I do think the most significant thing that's going to happen with the new CUSMA will be that we can at least be a trading bloc, and I think we can be competitive against the rest of the world. It'll be interesting to see whether people can get around the RVC and the LVC to ship product in without paying duties, but I think that's the most significant issue in our industry.
Thank you for that. Mr. Patterson, would you like to add anything to that?
No, well, I agree entirely with Don. I would say that there are always opportunities for companies or countries that are smart and really make the basis for success in their areas. I think Jim talked about some of those areas. We've talked about some of those ourselves. The other big factor is that the auto sector is not only going through a massive transformation just to accommodate the new CUSMA, we're also going through a massive technology transformation at the same time. So for the first time in 100 years, we're changing the fundamental technology of our vehicles on a massive, quick basis to move to electric cars right across the piece. And we're also going to introduce vehicles that drive themselves that will take away driver error, which is killing 40,000 people a year in the United States. So there's huge opportunities for change, and it's a lot to juggle at the same time. And then you throw in COVID and you throw in all those other challenges like rail strikes and things that we've talked about in the past, and it becomes very difficult. So we have to be nimble. We know how to move around problems. We work closely. Don and I talk on the phone all the time because we're solving problems every day.
Thank you. Madam Chair, I'd like to yield my time to MP Longfeld.
Great, thank you. And I'd like to continue the discussion on supply chain, and with Supply Chain Canada, that this COVID-19 has shown the world how important supply chains are, and validating product and validating processes and doing inspections, working with professional partners all through the value chain. With Supply Chain Canada, I mean, I used to work with Supply Chain Canada when PMAC was a separate group, because purchasing is also a big part of supply chain. If we look at back to research and recovery, the role that the Canadian government can play in bolstering our research on supply chain as well as delivering to the world, being a trading nation, the only G7 country with trade agreements with all other G7 countries, what's the opportunity we have?
Sorry, Miss question.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, I was just coming off mute. The real opportunity that we have here with supply chains in Canada is to make sure, again, that we are understanding consumer demands and being able to react to that. The other piece, and I want to come back to a comment that was made earlier, as we go through the crisis, the ability for the federal government to take a more assertive role in emergency management around supply chain will be a key issue. One of the challenges that we've had is that the deferral in many respects to the provinces have left us with a patchwork of guidelines and processes. And I think that there is moving forward going to be a considerably larger role for the government to play when it comes to managing supply chain during times of emergency.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And that is our time for today. I'd like to thank the witnesses for being with us. And with that, I will call the meeting adjourned.